Hello, everyone. This is Andrew Rochford, host of the Rochford Files on YouTube and Twitch as well. And we've got another story uh, that coincides with the sports and politics crossover with former All Pro NFL running back Herschel Walker has announced that he will run for Senate in Georgia against the Reverend Raphael Warnock. So let's get into the further details of this story. Walker, a close confidant of former President Donald Trump, filed the paperwork Tuesday afternoon after registering to vote in Georgia earlier this month. A resident of Texas, Walker will return to his home state to establish residency in preparation for the 15-month campaign. When he arrives, Walker will instantly become the most recognizable Republican seeking Warnock's seat. Walker led Georgia to its most recent national championship in 1980 and still boasts near universal name recognition in the state. Warnock was one of two Democrats, along with Jon Ossoff, to win runoff elections in Georgia in January, tipping the balance power in Congress away from Republicans. Warnock won the seat vacated by Johnny Isakson in 2019, so his seat is up for election next year rather than the customary 6 years. Walker not only brings his formidable public image, but also the endorsement of Trump, a friend and confidant of Walker's since the early 1980s. Trump brought the New Jersey Generals of the long-defunct USFL, in part because Walker was already on the roster. Earlier this year, on March 10th, Trump made his intentions for Walker plain in an emailed press release. So that right there is pretty much what it means. As we know, Herschel Walker has become one of the most well-known figures within MAGA, and having that as a really built-in advantage, and in addition to his well-established name, and also the fact that it makes a lot of sense that he's choosing to run against the Reverend Raphael Warnock. I imagine that while I do think that Walker would have better chances just against Jon Ossoff, I imagine that Republicans are leaving that open for a repeat challenge from Kelly Loeffler, who lost to Ossoff in the runoff back in January. But this is going to be a hard hill to climb for Warnock because of the fact that we know that both Warnock and Ossoff both ran on the campaign promise of a $2,000 check in the American Rescue Act, only to have Joe Biden roll back that promise and whittle that down to $1,400. And what we do know about that was a big factor in Georgia turning the state blue in this past election. And this is Georgia, while the races end up being closer than what you would think for a state that was been solidly red for a while. I think this pandemic was one of those rare exceptions, in addition to the anti-Trump motivations that really did lead to Georgia temporarily losing the state, and how Governor Brian Kemp has put in voting rights restrictions back through the state to try to make it easier to flip that back to Republicans in both Senate seats. And regardless of what you think of Herschel Walker, uh, what we do know is when you have celebrity recognition in politics, regardless of how bad your platform is, that's gonna really be a built-in advantage, especially when you run against your typical milquetoast liberals like John Ossoff, even though uh, the Reverend Warnock is not as bad as your average neoliberal, but that is still going to be a pretty big uphill battle, especially since the Biden administration has decided to uh, do so little to materially improve the lives of people, especially to motivate the people who normally don't vote in elections, because what we saw with the voter outcome, that was probably going to be an outlier in terms of the total votes that both parties got. That was definitely more around the 66 to 70 percentile in terms of voter participation. And expect that in 2022 and especially 2024, that the voter turnout is going to be more on the normal average of a little more than roughly about half of voter turnout. And especially in a state like Georgia, you're going to have that similar type of Herschel Walker, and he's just going to join a long line of professional athletes who have tried to run for political office. So, as liberals will try to sit there and tell you that he really doesn't stand a shot, even though, because of the fact that they're uh, swayed by the charisma of Raphael Warnock, and they don't realize that Herschel Walker has that working for him too, especially since politics are so celebritized that athletes, celebrities have such a built-in advantage compared to the regular working class person, regardless of whether they're someone who tries to run as an anti-establishment person in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. That really helps you uh, use your funding in different ways compared to other people. And by and large, any professional athlete who's ran for office has been successful to some degree, even if they don't break through on the first try. And I think Herschel Walker has higher odds than some of these other examples that I'm about to run through the list, like Dave being a former uh, NBA player who served a few years as mayor in Detroit. Among those examples, don't forget Cory Booker. One thing that people don't really know about him is that he used to be a tight end at the University of Stanford. And even though you know him now as another prototype of a Barack Obama style neoliberal, who has been in the Senate for quite a while now. Bill Bradley, a former NBA player who used to play for the New York Knicks, served 3 terms as a Democrat senator in New Jersey, and then successfully ran for president in 2000. Jim Bunning, a former Major League Baseball pitcher, served in the Kentucky State Senate from 1980 to 1984 and 1987 to 1999. So that is another example. Former NBA player Terry DeHare served in the Jersey City Council from 2007 to 2010. Clint Didier, a former Washington football team player, and on the Green Bay Packers as well, unsuccessfully ran for office 4 times, but finally won a Franklin County Commission District 3 seat in 2018. Ken Dryden, a former goalie of the Montreal Canadiens, became a member of the Canadian Parliament from 2004 to 2011. Chris Dudley, a guy most known for getting dunked on by Shaq and being pushed to the ground following that, unsuccessfully ran for governor in Oregon as a Republican and narrowly lost to John Kitzhaber. There's more. The former president, Dwight D. Eisenhower, he played several sports at West Point, and he then entered politics in 1948, became president in 1953, and served his 2 full terms. Another former president, Gerald Ford, was a long snapper, center, and linebacker at the University of Michigan, and became U.S. president following the Richard Nixon Watergate scandal in 1974, but lost a re-election bid to Jimmy Carter in 1976. A former slot wide receiver, Anthony Gonzalez, who mainly played for the Indianapolis Colts for a few seasons, won an election in 2018 to join the Ohio House of Representatives. Former linebacker Napoleon Harris became an Illinois senator in 2013 and has been the incumbent ever since. Then the former Phoenix Suns point guard Kevin Johnson served as mayor of Sacramento from 2008 to 2016. It took him multiple shots to get there. So what we do know overall is there's a big list of professional athletes who have took their shots to run for political office, and by and large most of them have been successful. And given the circumstances of what has transpired so far in this Biden administration, and they're really going to have to pull some magic out from their sleeves to do more than what is being reported in the infrastructure bill and the reconciliation bill set to take place next month. If they want to change the trajectory of what is likely to happen, then that is losing the House and Senate both in 2022 and making Joe Biden a lame duck president with no power anymore, especially since progressives in Congress aren't fighting to pull the Biden administration further to the left, because people by and large do not have that power to do that. And given those circumstances, I would suspect Herschel Walker has a better chance than liberals are willing to acknowledge. And by and large, if the more that liberals do not acknowledge the proper threat that certain Republican candidates have towards flipping the House and Senate back in their favor, is that type of arrogance that is only going to make it harder for them to see the real problems with the Democratic Party when they repeatedly uh, continue to fall into the trap of this. So even though he's going to run as your typical MAGA politician, I just think that voter suppression and the lack of turnout that is not going to vote in these upcoming elections is going to be what probably does both Georgia senators in, and will probably help Herschel Walker have better chance of flipping that seat back to the Republicans next year.